Hello, and welcome to You Can Grow Your Own Way, a conversation for parents and carers of neurodivergent children. I feel so privileged you are taking time out of your busy life to learn all about the ways to interpret neurodivergence for you and your child. Remember, all advice on this podcast is general and may not specifically apply to your child, so we encourage you to also talk to your GP, paediatrician or specialist to see if what you've learned will help your family. Welcome, gorgeous listeners. You are listening to You Can Grow Your Own Way, a conversation for parents, carers of neurodivergent children. And we are in for a bit of a treat today. One of the privileges I get is that I get to speak to people with the most amazing experience. And it doesn't really come much more experienced than Professor Mat Sanders. Professor Mat Sanders has been in this space for over 40 years, and as you'll soon hear, has a breadth of knowledge around all things parenting. You may have heard of the Triple P program, which is the Positive Parenting Program, and he is its creator and has recently launched Stepping Stones, which is a program that is for parents of children who have disabilities, learning difficulties, neurodivergence, hidden disabilities, and all kinds of challenges in those spaces. So let me introduce you. Professor Mat Sanders is the Triple P founder and the Emeritus Professor at the University of Queensland School of Psychology. His Triple P parenting system has now helped more than 7 million children and their families. It's used in 30 countries, and more than 109,000 practitioners have been trained in its delivery. Professor Sanders has over 500 publications, including authoring or co-authoring 330 peer-reviewed papers, 9 books, 33 video programs, and 85 practitioner resources. His work has also inspired 3 international TV series, including the UK's high-rating Driving Mum and Dad Mad. He has also led 2 podcast series, including Parenting in a Pandemic and Parents Under Pressure. So I've got a bit of an expert here. Professor Sanders has consulted and advised governments at senior policy levels in Australia, UK, Canada, the UK, Ireland, Switzerland, New Zealand, China, Indonesia, Chile, Singapore, Japan, Iran, Germany, France, Sweden, Belgium, and the Netherlands. He's been a consultant to the World Health Organization and has been an expert consultant on positive parenting to the Council of Europe. He met with then British Prime Minister Tony Blair shortly before the Home Office launched a national parenting initiative which included Triple P. Some of his career awards to date have included the International Collaborative Prevention Research Award from the Society for Prevention Research in the US, President's Award for Distinguished Contribution to Psychology from the Australian Psychological Society, the Trailblazers Award from the Association for Behavioural and Cognitive Therapy, and the National Violence Prevention Award from the Australian Heads of Government. He is married with 2 adult children, and in his second stage of parenting is now also a proud grandfather, so comes with lived experience as well. So welcome to the podcast, Professor Mat Sanders. Matthew, so happy to have you here to talk about stepping stones. I think it's something that could be really beneficial for our parents to hear about. So thanks for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. It's great to be here.
So I think a really great place to start, recognising that we're going to be talking to parents who have neurodivergent children, but also understanding that this is not where this program initially started. Can you tell us about, I suppose, the need and the beginnings of the Triple P program?
Well, this is now 4 decades of work. It began with my own doctoral research with preschoolers who were typically developing kids, but kids with significant behaviour difficulties. And back in the early 80s, we developed a home coaching model of supporting parents and learning to deal with, everyday behaviour difficulties in these children, whining and tantrums and aggression and not doing as they're told and being a nightmare on a shopping trip and travelling in the car was just awful and so on. So we developed this home coaching program that it pretty much became apparent to me straight away that the skills and strategies that were being introduced in this program were really relevant to many other children and many other age groups. And so over the next 15 years, we did a whole bunch of research developing and testing and trialing the Triple P program that now goes from prior to birth right through to adolescence. But in those days, it started off with preschool age children. In about 1995, it became very apparent that there was a need for a version of this program specifically adapted to parents of neurodiverse children. We began the work with parents of children with an intellectual disability
Mm.
and also children with ASD. And we worked with some colleagues in Western Australia to develop what is now known as Stepping Stones Triple P. And so it's been based really on at least 25 years of ongoing research and development and trialing of the techniques, the strategies, the principles that parents are introduced to in this program. And the thing that we found out more than anything else is that um, when parents learn the skills that are associated with stepping stones, people's households are much calmer. There's
Mm.
less shouting, less raised voices. There's much less sort of what we call coercive escalation when things are going wrong and parents have to sort of up the level of muscle to try to get things happening the way they'd like them to.
Yep. Yep.
Um, it's what we've found is that generally parents are calmer, they're more positive, they're more consistent, and they create this more predictable environment for children. And it's amazing, you know, that a certain more predictable environment is a winner for everyone. It's a winner for kids, it's a winner for parents, it's a winner for anyone else who's looking after our children
Mm.
because it brings an element of predictability to our lives.
Mm. I love what
So
I'm
that's
hearing.
where Stepping Stone started from. It evolved from Triple P, and but it's got a number of really core fundamental principles that underpin the program.
What I'm sort of picking up from what you're saying is that by giving parents confidence and a different way to do things, it's actually, even though it's a parenting program that is meant to assist with children, it's actually assisting the parents' regulation and capacity,
Definitely.
which then flows through to the child.
You've nailed it. In fact, it's funny that you say that because I often have to remind people that we talk to about a parenting program. It's actually an adult intervention. It
Mm.
focuses upon the parent themselves, their capacity to communicate effectively, manage their emotions, deal with children and others who are looking after their children in an appropriate way. And of course, children benefit hugely from that, but so do parents. And
Mm.
when parents feel they have the knowledge, skills, and confidence to handle the tasks of parenthood, that every child is unique and throws unique challenges to parents. But when parents develop their sense of confidence and what we refer to as personal agency, it means that they feel in control of their world. And it's not, you're not always shooting from the hip. You're not always trying to impulsively deal with things that you're uncertain about how to deal with. You're much more planful. And when you're planful, it's you can anticipate things. You can anticipate a high risk situation you're going to encounter, and you can ask the question, what do I need to do to prepare myself and my child for handling this situation
Mm.
that they have
Mm.
not encountered before? And of course, that can involve things like going on a bus trip for the first time, going on an aeroplane ride, going visiting to someone else's house, being invited to a party that you've never been to before. And so when you think about these as sort of life skills challenges that we as adults and parents are learning how to navigate with our children, and some of our children, of course, will have special needs and it'll need to be handled in a particular way. But there's absolutely no doubt that the more we feel in control of the parenting issues that we're confronting, the better off we are.
So Triple P stands for Positive Parenting Program. Am I correct?
Yep.
Beautiful. And I suppose I want to highlight how, and it's interesting to say that you've been working on this for 40 years, because if you think about a lot of what was perceived as the traditional model of parenting,
Yep.
the parent is, the power player,
The
the one who
authority
makes,
figure.
yeah, and then the child has to be the supplicant to everything that's going on. And that timing, I suppose, is interesting from a child who grew up in the 80s,
Hmm.
um, and was part of the 80s generation of parenting.
Yeah.
Um, and to know that that was sort of being looked at and considered and addressed then is just, I mean, I find that really fascinating. Um, but it really flips a lot of that methodology on its head. So you're dealing often, I would say, with parents who were raised in a very different way. And you're then helping them change that mindset of the pattern that they already have.
Do you know, it's an interesting issue, this of sort of, if you look back and you think of being raised in the 70s or 80s and the kind of parenting that used to work then, and how much of those skills and strategies are still relevant today. Look, it is the case that there are many, many things that worked then that still work now.
Mm,
And that there are a few additional things that we're having to consider when we start talking about parenting in uh, a digital universe, children
yes.
growing up with the internet and that kind of thing. But to be perfectly frank, if you think about the five most basic principles that
Mm,
underpin Triple P, these are still as relevant today as they've ever been. The first one is that children are going to thrive when it's a safe and interesting and engaging environment. So
mm,
that the more that kids are absorbed in developmentally and age appropriate activities, the fewer behaviour difficulties that parents experience. The second principle is a positive learning environment, so a world of encouragement, a world of children engaging in a new skill or behavior and receiving encouragement and positive attention in a way that doesn't make them overly reliant on approval to continue with that
mm,
activity, because you're providing encouragement a lot at the beginning, but in order to keep it going, you have to provide it less and less predictably. And it's interesting, this is the way you avoid children becoming overly reliant on approval and encouragement. But that's the
mm,
second one. And the third one is consistent boundaries and limits, so that children do need to learn the meaning of the word no. And if they don't learn the meaning of the word no, it becomes very, very difficult for parents to manage their children, particularly if the kids are being challenging or difficult or aggressive or engaging in behaviour that parents really find embarrassing and difficult to
mm,
deal with. Kids
mm,
do need to learn that adult authority actually does mean something,
mm,
but we have to exercise that authority with care, and we
mm,
have to do it in a way that respects children's rights to have a viewpoint, an opinion, and that it is okay to have a rule that you can discuss and renegotiate. And it's not always do as I say because I say it. It's do as I say because it's actually important for you to keep you safe
mm,
and to make sure that our household can run appropriately. If everything is a battle, every little getting dressed, having breakfast, getting into bed, getting ready for school. If all of these occasions are times where kids are going to jack up and there's going to be an argument, it is so stressful for
mm,
everyone involved. So the fourth principle is reasonable expectations of our children.
yep.
And when you think about what's reasonable, what's age appropriate, this becomes much more of a challenge when you've got a neurodiverse child or a child with a developmental disability.
Yep.
And the parent is often wondering, well, what is reasonable and appropriate? How much is my child capable of learning to dress themselves or to
Mm,
use the toilet independently
mhm,
or to use a civil, pleasant voice when they're wanting something from me? And you can make two sort of errors here. One is you expect too much, but just as problematic is expecting not enough.
yep.
And
Yep.
so kids are left with not being able to do things because parents have assumed that they can't do it. They can't learn to use the toilet independently. They can't dress themselves. And so they end up being 9-year-olds and still requiring parents to dress them.
It's interesting. And speaking of 9-year-olds, you nailed it there because we're going through that at the moment with Mr. Nine. We
Yeah,
have seen, so as he's been learning certain things from a
yeah,
cognitive capacity, a lot of his executive functioning around understanding personal care has really diminished.
yeah,
And so we're trying to work out at the moment where's his developmental age with certain things versus his chronological age.
yeah,
Where do we sit with what we teach, what we help with, what we boost, what we push,
yeah,
and what are the skills that are not within his wheelhouse of
yeah,
executive
yes,
functioning capacity?
not yet.
And we're sort of in that spot right at the moment so that
Can
we
I
know.
just make an observation there? Is
Yes,
that remain in that spot as long as you can.
that's right.
Because the reason I'm just suggesting that is that this is an ongoing issue
Mm,
that will continue to be a challenge for you as a parent, and it's normal.
yeah.
And it's normal to be asking the question, is my child ready for this?
Mm,
Is it appropriate to push it or should I be backing off? But the fact that you're reflecting on this and you're asking the question rather than just making an assumption is so important because it means you're much more likely to land on a solution that
mm,
you can trial and test, review, and if you have to change it, you do change it.
mm,
Just one tip. If
mm,
you've changed something and you've got a plan for doing it, give yourself 3 to 4 weeks. And if it's not working by then,
mhm.
it's probably not going to work. And
That's
it's
really good
because
advice.
many of the things that make a really big difference happen quickly.
Mm,
And so, even with children with learning difficulties, they might need time to consolidate it and so on. But at the same time, that's the time frame that I'd be thinking of. Look, the other thing about the fourth principle, which was reasonable expectations, it's reasonable expectations not only of your children but of yourself and of
yes.
anyone else who looks after your
Yeah,
kids.
that's so important. That's such an important thing. And I think, I mean, I have conversations with other parents all the time
Hmm.
who can feel so guilty about the times when they get it wrong or the
Yeah,
times when they're tired and so they yelled or they're
yeah,
sick. So they weren't able to deliver what they wanted to. And, being fair to ourselves as well. Um,
yeah.
it
That's right,
prevents.
because we all make mistakes.
That's it. Yeah.
The challenge is not to keep recycling the same mistake over and over and over again and not
Mm,
learning from it.
mm,
Because if you're able to learn from the times that things are not working out, then you're equipping yourself to handle future challenges in a big way. Look, the other thing I was just going to mention is that this idea of being reasonable about how we advocate for our children as well. Because if you think about teachers and educators and others who are involved in our children's
mm,
lives,
mm.
one of the things that we can make a big mistake about is getting too pushy, too demanding, too it's almost like expecting other
Mm.
people to just know that they need
Yes.
to do things
Yes.
differently with my child because they are special.
Mm,
Whereas that often backfires on parents, and because if a school sees you as a pushy, demanding, entitled, and escalative parent,
mm,
oh my God, you're the one to avoid.
mm,
And trouble is
mm.
that our kids get reputations
Yeah.
about having a difficult mother or father, and it sort of like comes back to haunt us.
Mm,
So probably the most important thing is to not make assumptions about what other people know about your child or what they are doing to address the issue you're concerned about. So, for example, if you've got a child with ASD who's been bullied at school, you understand they've been bullied at school. Don't make an assumption that the school is not aware of it and hasn't done anything about it.
mm,
Because if you go in all guns blazing in a sort of a blaming, accusatory way, why is this occurring and what are you doing to sort it out? Then it will create not a partnership in trying to solve the problem, but a combative situation.
mm.
And what you really want is the school to be honest with you about what they've tried,
Yes.
how they're thinking about trying to solve it, and work together.
Yes. Yeah, look, I completely agree. I think that the thing, and that's the same with specialists, GPs, anyone who's working with your child, you always want to start with open communication first.
You do.
Um, and being able to be vulnerable and authentic yourself so that they feel like they can be vulnerable and authentic with you. And
Yes. Good point.
that's definitely how you're going to get to a place of being able to work cohesively and collaboratively. My mouth
Yeah.
didn't want to say that today. Um,
No, came across beautifully. It's exactly exactly what's needed. Look, the last principle I was just going to mention about is that taking care of yourself principle. And, one of the things that is a concern with parents who have a child with special needs or additional needs is that they are at greater risk of relationship breakdown,
mm,
and that, communication problems, conflict, the parent feeling overwhelmed with sort of stress, and so that parents' mental health can be adversely affected. And so, one of the things that I think is very important as a fundamental principle of positive parenting is, if we make sure that we take care of ourselves first,
mm,
we're much more likely to be able to take care of others in our social world. But if we neglect ourselves, it becomes so much more difficult, and we feel miserable.
mm,
And
mm.
so, and when you're feeling miserable, it's hard to be positive, consistent, decisive, and a strong advocate for our kids, because our kids need us to be strong and well.
Yes. Yeah.
So
And
all I'm saying is, doing a positive parenting program like Stepping Stones is a great boost to adult mental health.
mm,
It's not just about the parenting side of things.
I think, look, that's also it's a topic that comes up in our conversations a lot, and a really really great point that anything we can do. Firstly, anything we can do to bolster our toolkit is going to make us feel better about ourselves, and that's
Yeah.
that's great. And I think recognizing, and we talk about this quite a bit, that you can create little moments when you're needing to look after yourself. They don't have to be really big things. You don't have to go on holidays for a week. You can find five
Yeah.
minutes a day to walk outside and
You
put your feet
nailed it.
in the grass with your cup of tea in your hands,
Yeah.
and just be in that moment to make sure that you can be present for you, and then
Yeah.
present when you go inside for your children.
Oh, I love what you're saying there, and it's so true. It's kind of like, some people associate taking care of yourself of getting away from kids and going for a holiday without them, and just, respite and that kind of thing. Whereas the things that make the greatest difference are the moments that you build into everyday routines that
Mm,
just give you a moment to yourself, to pause, to be in the present,
mm,
in sort of dealing with your own kind of feelings and emotions at that time, and then readying yourself to re-enter the fray, as it were, with the kids.
that's
Um,
it.
yeah, and it's so nice also just to have a bit of a support network where you can reach out to others who sort of understand what you're going through. They're not you, of course, so
Mm,
no one will be
mm,
have experienced what you have yourself as a parent, but at the same time, they a wise voice sometimes of someone who's been there, done that, and got through it all, can be inspiring.
yes. Yeah.
Particularly when you see people who've got, lovely kids. The kids certainly have got special needs, and they're different from other children, but they're lovely, lovely children.
Mm,
And when you see parents who are proud of their children, and it's such a nice feeling to be
mm,
around people like that, because it
mm.
sort of it spreads, that feeling of
I have a
wonderment
beautiful
and
mother in our
pride, really.
community. I've got a beautiful mother in our community who has a child who, well, he's not a child anymore. He's a young man. He's in his
Yeah,
20s, and he's nonverbal ASD.
yeah.
And I remember her saying to me one day, you know, I want you to know that the young years are hard. They are
Mhm.
hard. They're dirty and messy, and it's
Yeah,
really tough to decipher what they need and what they want. But
yeah.
that they do grow up, and about halfway through their adolescence, things for them settle. They start to understand themselves more, and then they can show you who they are, and it becomes joyful.
Yes. Oh,
And
that's interesting, isn't it?
having that said to me was like, oh my God, this is not going to be my life forever. Those days when it's really, really tough, it's not going to be like this forever. Right now, we're putting in the really hard yards to help them understand and be the best of who they are. And there
Yeah.
will be that other opportunity down the road for us to create a relationship.
And you're laying the foundations at every phase of development for the next phase. You know,
Mm,
there's a lot of talk about the importance of the first 1,000 days of life, and I think, you know, okay, that's true to a certain degree, but I
mm,
tell you, every 1,000 days of life throughout life is
mm,
important, and that
mhm,
from a parenting perspective, it is absolutely a marathon, not a sprint.
mm,
And the thing is that even though you can get through early childhood and the primary years and secondary years, and our kids end up as adults, they're still continuing to grow as we are. And I've often thought, you know, when someone said to me a while ago, we shouldn't judge too soon how well we've done with parenting. Let's see how we cope with our kids' first midlife crisis before we judge. I thought, boy, are you spot on there?
yeah.
Because, you know, when you transit, I'm 72 now and I've got 5 grandkids and 2 adult kids in their 40s. But I still feel very actively involved in the lives of our own children and our grandchildren. And
Mm,
that's the way it should be.
mm,
Because
yeah.
I tell you, as you're aging, if you're seriously involved in grandparenting of our children, we've got something that's worth talking about, worth sharing, worth remembering. And, you know, if you're a grumpy, irritable old man, your kids won't want to see you, nor will your grandkids. So I mean, good parenting is a formula for a happy life, really.
And it's amazing when you say the kids continue to grow. I mean, I was just reflecting as you said that the things I knew, who I was, the decisions I made, the person I projected to the world when I was 20
Yeah,
versus my age now is so different.
yeah,
And that evolution for me has continued. And, the relationship you then have to be able to fall back on your connection with your parents
yeah.
helps to shape that as you continue to grow and
Sure
then
does,
eventually
doesn't it?
have your own children.
The thing that I think we should all remind ourselves of is that so long as we're capable of learning, we're
Mm,
capable of change. And that capability of learning, I mean, the old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, is simply wrong, because you can continue to evolve and change throughout your life.
mm,
Uh, if you have the opportunity and you see it as being important. And the thing about parenting and grandparenting is that none of us have got all the answers. So the
no.
more we're open to learning
Mm.
and just taking on board new ideas and trying them out, the better off we are.
Most definitely. My grandfather in his 80s said to me, this is when I was a lot younger. He said, the day that I stop learning is the day that I should drop dead.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. That's a pretty blunt way of putting it, isn't it?
it is, but it's a great headspace to have moving forward as well. That, the world is always changing and I'm always evolving and, I need to be
Yeah.
willing to change and evolve with it. Um,
Well, yeah. That's nice.
Matthew, can you tell me what do you think are the core differences or the core things you identified to stand out in stepping stones that's different for the standard triple
Okay,
P
well,
program?
you know, we've talked about the first 5 principles of positive
Mm,
parenting. We added
mm,
2 additional ones, and they were the importance of adapting, realistically adapting to having a child with special needs or having a disability or a neurodiverse child, so that part of that was a sort of an emotional acceptance of the
mhm,
fact that you have a child that is different and that
mhm,
you need to accommodate and accept that. And if you
mhm.
don't accept it, you're generally in denial about it, and
Yeah.
that
And
can
you
be a real
resent it.
struggle. And the other principle was the importance of seeing yourself as part of the community, so that rather than being separate from it. And the idea here is that we want our kids to basically have a full range of opportunities, educational, sporting, music, in the same way that other children are able to participate. We want our kids with special needs to be fully involved and
Mhm,
accepted by that community. So those were 2 additional principles. The original Triple P program had 17 core skills and strategies that were used in the program. And that was increased to 25 skills in
Okay.
stepping stones
Yep.
because there were some additional skills and strategies that had been shown in research to be particularly helpful in with children with learning difficulties and with ASD and other neurodiversity issues that were added to the toolbox for parents to be able to use. And I've described it as a toolbox because these are options that
Mm,
parents have for bringing together a parenting plan and strategy, and they involve getting the right mix and match of skills and strategies for the right problem in the right child at the
at the
right
right
time.
time. Yeah.
The right time, and so I think the main thing to keep in mind is that what Stepping Stones aims to do is to introduce parents to the range of skills and options, and for every single one of them, you can make them work or fail.
Mm,
And there's no magic formula that is always going to work. So, for example, if you take a really fundamental skill like the use of descriptive praise, um, thank you, Jamie, for doing as mum asked straight away, or thank you for putting away your toys. You know, that is a very clear example of praise that is descriptive and informative, tells the child what it is they've just accomplished that you're pleased with.
mm,
Now, the question is, can you make that work and fail? Well, yes, you can. In fact, you can do too much praise for the same thing and it starts to lose its effectiveness over time unless you vary it. And so
mm,
that it's kind of like the magic formula here is that you're drawing to your child's attention something that they have just accomplished that they need to own and that you are acknowledging and you're giving them positive encouragement for that. But the idea of doing when the children are learning a skill like tidying away after themselves before coming to the dinner table to have something to eat, that action of doing it independently might initially need to be occurring in the context of giving a child a prompt or a reminder that it's now time to do that. But
mm,
eventually, you would like them to be able to do that themselves without the prompt and reminder. But if you keep the prompt and reminder always being there, that can turn into a nag. That can turn into something that kids want to resist against.
mm,
And so the idea is that you are trying to build this a child's capability to do something independently with as little scaffolding in the end that is required to enable them to do it on their own. And
mm,
that includes stripping away all the prompts and reminders and the activity schedules and the things that would cue the child that now's the time to do this,
mm,
and also stripping away all of the consequences that are involved in reinforcing and encouraging the behavior by making those consequences more unpredictable. So the child never knows whether or not they're going to get a pat on the back or not, but their behavior is not overly reliant on having that approval. Now, as
mm,
soon as you know about that principle of going from frequent positive attention to more unpredictable, less frequent attention, that's a game changer because you actually might have to say nothing, just observe and notice it, and then maybe come in later on with a comment like, what have you just accomplished? What am I smiling about? What have you just done?
yep.
And then the child is given a chance to say, well, what did I do?
Mm,
And share it with you. And you
yeah.
see, what's happening there is that they're learning to praise themselves
Mm.
and to pat themselves on the back without you having to be the scaffolding there that is. Does that make sense? Does that?
It makes perfect sense. I'm actually listening to this, and I find a lot of neuroscience really, really fascinating, especially when we're learning about parenting and children. And it's
Yeah.
just as I'm listening to it, my brain's going, "Oh my goodness, it's hijacking your child's dopamine cycle."
Yeah.
Which is genius because our dopamine spikes are so much better for us when they come at random, unexpected moments and we feel them
Yeah,
so much more. And so
yeah.
we're finding our ways to hijack their dopamine and make them actually feel these big bursts of pride and joy when they get that praise from us, and then work out how to create that dopamine for themselves, which is
And you're
fantastic.
building in sort of the surprise element, and that because it is a surprise that now there's a comment that they are having to receive and process. Look,
Mm,
the other thing I was going to say is that for every parenting skill that you can think of on our list of 25 things that you can do, for every one of them, there is a reciprocal child skill that children are learning. And
yeah.
so, for example, when you're using descriptive praise, children are learning the skill of how to appropriately receive a compliment
Mm.
and
Mm,
how to receive it in a way without showing off, without bragging, without going silly. And that's a skill, that's a social
mm,
skill.
mm,
Similarly, when you think about the skill of giving a child a clear, direct instruction, the child is that's an opportunity for the child to practice listening,
mm,
paying attention to what you've been asked to do, and quickly acting upon it, so that your the youngster is learning the skill of cooperating appropriately.
mm,
And it's not so much dealing with his disobedience, it's to deal with how to increase the child's cooperativeness to reasonable, age appropriate instructions and requests. And of course, that when children are more cooperative like that, they are so much easier to live with. I mean, you ask them to get ready for school and they do. You ask them to put their lunchbox out of their bag on the bench and they do.
mm,
You ask
mhm.
them to, leave the iPad and come to the dinner table, and they do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I don't know about you, but I find when children are, cooperative with reasonable things we're asking them to do, they're a joy to be around. They're so much easier to live with.
They're less exhausting.
Yeah, totally,
Because the
totally.
energy you
That's
put
it.
into, if you have to negotiate, if you have to
Everything.
manipulate, then it's
Yeah,
way more exhausting. And you're not having a true authentic relationship with your child. So
yeah,
the trust and the connection that comes between the two of you isn't there as well. And so it just makes everything so much more tiresome, and everything is a labor rather
yeah,
than it just being, a moment in life.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's a big difference.
Yeah, the other thing that I've found over the years in working with parents who are really struggling with their kids' sort of behaviour difficulties is that there is a skill set in being a parent that involves sort of tuning in to what children are doing, and that is means noticing what is actually happening.
Mm,
Um, so, for example, if you've got two kids and they're fighting and arguing over something, and you weren't there, you didn't see it, you didn't know who started it or who's kept it going. Um, but the fact that this behaviour is occurring, the if you had been in a situation of being observant, you could see it happening, you could see it about to happen, you're far better off by knowing that than just simply having to try to troubleshoot after the fact.
mhm,
But the general principle is one of um, the more observant we are of what our children are doing, the more likely it is that we can detect things like this. The child approaches us and say, "Mummy, mummy, mummy," and you get that escalate, and the parent is not even noticing the
mhm,
first mummy
mhm.
because the first mummy was said in a civil, pleasant voice.
Yes.
And that is a beautiful time to say, "How can I help you?"
Yes.
Pause
Yes.
what you're doing, brief moment of attention,
Mm.
and then you've avoided the escalation.
Yeah. Yeah. Or
And
even just to say, "Give me 2 minutes, I'm gonna finish this. I have
that's,
heard you."
yep, I'll be with you in two,
Yeah.
but keep it to two, not
Mhm.
10.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the point is that if we're highly attuned to what our children are doing, we will notice when they reasonably approach us and
Mm.
ask us for help or attention, and we are much more likely to respond quickly. And if we respond quickly, the child's need of the moment is addressed in a flash.
Yeah.
And then they can continue on with their own independent and goal directed activity with minimal adult supervision.
Mm. Mm. Yep.
And so that's a way of um, just remembering when we're giving our kids attention that if we're tuned in
Mm.
to particularly to when we attend and they're behaving appropriately, then we can avoid a lot of problems.
I'm going to flag there as well to those listening. Just be careful with phones because they're attention suckers,
Uh,
and often that's when we miss that mum, because we're not focused, we're in the zone, and we also can often fall into the trap of going, "Yep," while we're still looking at our phone. Yep, yep. And what they some
that's right. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, you've
and
nailed it
sometimes
there,
all
haven't
they
you?
actually want is for you to just face them,
Yeah,
recognize that they're there, connect back in
yeah,
with them in that space. And
yeah,
so, to just pop it down, as I said, even to say, give me 2 seconds, I just need to finish my email, but I do know you're there. Um,
yeah.
just break out
So,
of it and
so
try and
and
get
the
eye contact.
And if you think about it from a child's perspective, what it is they're doing and need to learn is how to interrupt appropriately and wait.
Mm,
Um, Excuse me, mum. It's kind of like so, or touching you, but waiting, because it's not always possible for you instantly to drop what you're doing. And sometimes they do have to wait.
mm,
And so I think that the main issue here is that when children are learning to signal to you they need your help or they want a conversation, the main thing from our perspective as an adult is to recognize that they've asked appropriately and then give them a response that either immediately deals with it or deals with it very soon.
mm.
But if they're being asked to wait, 10, 20, 30 minutes and so on, it's no wonder you then start hearing the kids fighting or that you've had some major explosion. I think the other thing that we've got to just really tune into is that we worry about screen time in kids. I worry about screen time in adults. And the fact that there's so many of us are looking at screens pretty much all day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so much more difficult to be a convincing role model for our kids in terms of their appropriate screen time when all they're seeing is the adults around them constantly looking at their phones
Yes.
or
Yep.
looking at screens.
Yep.
So we need to think about screen-free time. We need to think about making sure that we're not making it actually hard for our kids to learn these skills because of our own conduct.
I I'm definitely in the process of planning for a full episode around the balance of neurodivergent children needing safe spaces that sometimes involves time online and how we balance that against the impact of a lot of screen time and time online. And I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole,
No.
but I do think for all the parents out there, just do a little research, look at some brain scans of, people who use their phones for a maximum of maybe 2 hours a day versus 10 hours a day. If you really want to scare yourself, look at the brain scans of people who have started regularly using ChatGPT.
Yeah.
That will terrify you. And it might it might
Yeah.
change some of your habits. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, when it comes to engaging with our children, we can't try and teach them something that we're not willing to actually do ourselves. Um, we have a
And
no
we have to
phones.
ask ourselves, why are we so hooked on it?
Yes.
Because, it serves a function in people's lives. And there's
Mm,
no doubt that it's highly addictive. And the fact that we need to become aware of that. And like most good things, you can have too much of a good thing and you just need to
yes.
balance it. And
Correct.
you've got to have sort of screen-free time and moments of family life, where, like no screens at the dinner table.
Yes.
In fact,
Yep.
it'd be nice if people actually ate dinner at the dinner table. There's plenty of kids who never get to see a dinner table.
I think some of us have to choose it, and we're a dinner table family. But
Yeah.
I know some families have to choose it because some of their kids just can't deal with the sitting still, the stimulation, and that's one thing. But you can then find alternate moments of the family unit connection, whether it's
Yes.
a board game together or whatever it is. Um, the principles of the family dinner, I think, are really important to be
Well,
played out in the way that your family can.
if you think about the principles of the family dinner, one of the things to remind ourselves is not just a nutritional moment in
Mm,
terms of meal times and food consumption. It's a time for families coming together and connecting. You know, we often have with our 11 in our family who come together every Sunday for a meal. We have a kind of a reflection moment of the week, highlights of
yes.
the week,
Yeah.
and even from the kids at the very earliest age that they could talk around 2, they had to learn that um, you had to have a turn and then you had to listen to what other people had to say.
Mm,
And had to remain at the table until everyone had been around it. And
yes.
it was interesting if you think about what a 2-year-old can do compared to, say, an 11-year-old in terms of attention and that kind of thing. But I would not give up too quickly on the value of the family dinner
Mm,
around at a table,
yes.
because these are the moments where kids can learn other important skills like um, uh, remaining in the same place. You don't always have to climb under the table all the time
Mm,
um, because you just happen to have your turn.
mm,
But at the same time, you've got to see it as a task to be accomplished. But I mean, if you get that tradition well established, it's amazing how kids will look forward to contributing.
yeah.
And the other skill that they can learn to practice here is being brief, not gloating, not mocking or sort of laughing at other people who might have talked about a highlight that was um, a challenge or difficult or even humorous. So, what I'm saying really is that these are some of the important social skills
Mm,
that involve being a respectful member of a family.
yes. Yes.
And it's so lovely when it becomes established as a tradition, and it means that the kids are growing up in a world with uncles and aunts and cousins who are all sort of interested in them.
Mm, mm,
And their little moment of glory they can share, but they've got to do it without gloating.
yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good skill to have.
Yes. Look, humility is an incredibly great skill to have, I
Oh,
think.
yeah.
Humility and empathy. They're fabulous skills. And you're right, they come across through, you learn those through relationships and connections with other
And
people.
practice,
Yes.
practice,
Yeah.
practice, practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And of course that, and kids can contribute to the extent that they're developmentally capable of doing
Mm,
so.
mm,
For a child who doesn't who's not very verbal, they can show a photo of something that they've done. There's
mm,
some way of connecting with
mm.
others in their social world that's saying, I'm part of this. I
Yes.
want to be part of this.
Yes. I'm
It's
valued.
beautiful when you see it happening.
Yeah, definitely. So, look, Matthew, can you tell us how do we access this program? And you and I had a previous chat
Okay.
about this because, as you have recognised, when you're a parent and a carer for a child who has some form of disability, these things become much more complex. So, can you break down how we can access it?
Look, this is, a wonderful government initiative now because it's made 6 versions of Triple P, including Stepping Stones, Triple P Online, free to people throughout the country. And they can go to the triplep-parenting.net website and they'll be able to register for doing a Stepping Stones online course, which will be a 10 module program. So it's quite intensive. So get ready for tuning in. Each one is
Mm,
about half an hour to an hour. but they'll get a really comprehensive introduction to 25 skills and strategies that they can use. And so they just go to that website and register, and then you're away. And it is absolutely free. And boy, has this made a difference. So parents who are accessing stepping stones, and many are starting to do it now, they're going to be joining 560,000 other Australian parents who've accessed this
Wow.
program, the Triple P
Yep.
online programs, in the last 2 and a bit years.
Wow.
And prior to that, it was very difficult to access in most parts of Australia. So the Department of Health and Aged Care, through this Parent Education and Support Initiative, have enabled our parents to be able to access Stepping Stones Triple P online. So we're thrilled that this has happened.
That's fantastic. And so can parents do that sort of at their own pace? So if they
Yes.
want to do it once their child is in bed, or if they get an opportunity in the middle of the day, they can grab those moments where they are?
Absolutely. The whole idea is flexible delivery. And remember, if you had to do a 10-session parenting program that involved organising yourself and the kids to get to a location,
Mm.
that's a much harder thing to do. So
Gosh, yeah.
having an online
Hmm.
option available is not only what parents are seeking, it's what we've been able to find in our research, that we're producing similar outcomes to the in-person program. So you're not missing out on anything. Um, one of the things that is really neat to be able to do is that if you did it with a buddy,
Mm.
and that or a couple of
Mm.
buddies, and you had a small group, and you decided to do it as like a Facebook group, and you've got your online program, and then you're just meeting regularly as a check-in, that's good
Yes.
too.
Yeah, yeah, because you can share thoughts and challenges then too,
Yeah.
which is really fantastic.
And solutions, things that you're putting in place and that are working for you. So
Mm.
it's important, I think, in those sort of support groups, that you talk as much about wins as you do about challenges, because you don't want to whinge fest. You don't want
Mhm.
people just to get together to be able to whinge and complain, and it doesn't go anywhere. But I tell you, when you're doing a program and people are all thinking about how to make this work for me,
Mm.
that's a really great thing to be sharing with others.
Definitely. And anytime you feel like people are helping to lift you up as well, that helps
Yeah,
benefit parents' self-care.
yeah, it does. It's
Yeah,
part of it, isn't it?
most
Well,
definitely.
I tell you that, Carly, it's been great talking to you about this, because I'm just so delighted that there is an opportunity to have this program available to all Australian families and carers and grandparents who are interested in it. I think it'll be really valuable for them.
I think, look, something that's free for them to access, that they can access how they need when they need it. I think that's
Yeah,
incredible. And at the end of the day, there are so many challenges that we're overcoming every single day, being a parent of a child who has a neurodivergence, a disability, that, if there's
yeah,
something out there that can make moments easier, that's definitely a plus. And I know
yeah.
you mentioned to me as well, when we were offline, the amount of research that's gone into the creation of these programs. They're definitely backed by so much data and so much work.
Oh, well, I mean, just in a snapshot, there's been over 800 studies on Triple P now, and there's been over 400 evaluation studies and about 207 what are called randomized clinical trials. These are
Yeah.
the sort of the gold, the scientific gold standard, really, of things having proven to work. And we just need to remind ourselves, this is an Aussie program. It's now in 76 countries around the world in 23 languages, and it's something that I think we, as a professional community and a community of families, can be very proud of,
Mm.
because many thousands of Australian families have contributed to the evaluations that have been done on not only Stepping Stones but the whole Triple P program. So it's a win-win.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time. We did have a few hiccups to get ourselves here to chat, but we've managed to make it work, which is fantastic. And I hope that this is going to be sort of a great informational beginning for parents to then explore stepping stones a little bit further and see how it'll fit for them.
Yep. Great. Thanks, Carly, for inviting me on your show.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Be sure to check the show notes on our website for any links and references. You can find us at youcangrowyourownway.podbean.com. And if you found this episode helpful, we would love you to help us get the word out. You can share the podcast, tell a friend, and be sure to click the follow or subscribe button so you can access all our new episodes. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, where we would love to connect with you. You Can Grow Your Own Way recognises Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first peoples of this place, now known as Australia. We're coming to you from Jabberung, Jawajali and Wadawurrung country, the country of our guest speaker, and from wherever you are listening. We respect the elders of the past and present, and we share our friendship and kindness.